Hello there, ICS2O folks. This lesson is 2.7 on networks. Hopefully you've got a word processing document fired up. You're ready to take this note. You're going to see some pictures like this one. You can go and grab some pictures from the internet. That's what I did to spice up your note a little bit, or probably you could get away without it, but it's nice to see a picture to help you with your understanding. I'm using Smart Notebook. You don't have to. I like Smart Notebook because it allows me to show you only a little piece at a time, but you can use whatever word processing document you like. So networks. You talked a little bit about networks when you did your hardware, but this is specifically a day on networks. A network is a group of connected devices that share data or other resources. Now, we often think of a network as computers, and of course, that's since it's computer class, that's what we'll think of. But um, there's telephone networks, right? Where not even cell phone networks, but telephone networks that your parents would know, um, phones connecting to each other, connect people to each other. Similarly, there's TV networks, right? You've heard of NBC is a is a American broadcasting network, and that connects their stations together for broadcast. So there are other networks rather than computer networks, but they're the same in that they just have devices that are connected to share stuff, usually data. And so we're going to talk about networks. Computer networks consist of both hardware and software components. So often we think of networks as only the physical connection, the hardware connection of devices, but it's not. It's also there's software, and we'll talk about that briefly. Even though we do concentrate more on the physical part of it, there is a software aspect. So for instance, here's a couple of pictures, and again, you don't have to go get these, but it might make your life easier if you do. So for instance, we've got at home a couple of computers, and they're connected, and then they're actually physically connected to a router or a switch. We'll talk about what these things mean, but it's not like this document here can go along that wire. There has to be some sort of software that gets it ready to be sent along that wire. And we'll talk a little bit about that, even though um, how exactly that's done is a little bit too complicated for us, and in fact, it's a little bit too complicated for any of the high school computer classes. If this is something that you're interested in, this will be a college or a university program, actually how that's done. But we'll talk about it in terms that we can understand. So similarly, on a business, we've got all these computers, and people are doing their business work on their computers. Well, how does it get out to the internet, or how does it get saved on the company computer? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Uh, Before we do, a big note here is that networks can be wired or wireless. So a wired network would be like the ones in our computer room 176, where all that blue cable actually physically connects everything, and we'll talk a little bit about how that's done. Where compared to the school wireless, where all of our phones and iPads get connection, that's wireless, right? The wireless connection is to hubs and things like that are in the school in various places, and they hopefully you've set them up to connect automatically. So we at Northwestern, we have both the wired networks and wireless networks, and you can think about at home whether your computer is a wired network or a wireless network or Wi-Fi. Okay. Um, Here I have an example about this. I want to talk about this idea of hardware and software working together on a network. So here's an example. So when you press save, and I'm pretending you're using WordPerfect, but it doesn't matter. It means the same sort of thing. So you're working away on your computer, and you click save, right? You know that it gets saved somewhere, and it's not on the computer that you can touch right in front of you. This is on your H drive, which is on a server um, somewhere else in the school. So what actually happens? Well, there's a series of steps, and I'm going to try and explain it a little bit, but there's a number of things that happen. So the hardware involved, when you hit save and you're doing your word processing, there's the keyboard, mouse, and the computer that's right in front of you. Your CPU, central processing unit, is right in front of you. That's the hardware that's involved. But there's software, of course, that's involved as well. In WordPerfect, you can see your note, and we talked earlier in the week that WordPerfect is an example of application software. And then what happens is when you hit save, WordPerfect starts to talk with Windows, our operating system. And then Windows, because we know that we want to save it on your H drive, not on the local hard drive, but on the H drive, it knows it has to send it out on the network. So it talks to the network driver, and the network driver is a little piece of software that you wouldn't actually see or use. It's controlled by the operating system, and it runs the network card, right? And that's a piece of hardware. So a network card was one of those expansion cards that we actually touched that's inside the CPU. It's installed, and it's NIC, network interface card. That's actually a chunk of, it looks like a chunk of motherboard that's attached in your computer. And the network driver is software, and it communicates with the hardware, and the hardware then sends information out on those network cables, that blue stuff, along the back of your computer and along the side of the room, if you look at the side of the room, and then it goes into a network router. It's or a hub and a switch. Well, all these things we sort of use interchangeably in our course, but they mean slightly different things. And it goes in there, and then there's more network cables that are eventually attached to the network interface card of the server. And the server is like this big computer that's off in another room that's sort of well protected. And if you hear once in a while, oh, the server is down, well, that's what this is. It's the big computer where all of our data is saved. And then once it gets to the physical card of the server, then that's when the server's software starts up, right? The network driver of the server receives all your information, then its operating system kicks in, and it eventually saves it. So there's a lot of different steps, and it happens very quickly without us even thinking. So this is you working on your computer, and there's a card in there, and then when you press save, the card gets the data ready to go along the network, and then it goes into the switch. This one's called a switch, but it could be a router or a hub, and then it goes along there, and then it gets to the card right there that we said, the card in the server, and the server gets that saved. So there's a lot of steps, both hardware and software for the network. Okay, dandy. I don't want to make these videos too long, so I think I might, yeah, I'm going to stop here and pick it up in part 2, where we'll talk about more network terms. So I'll see you in a moment in part 2.